Hello YouTube. Today I introduce a machine to beat all 38 current zones with only 12 blocks. I call it the 38 Special, and you can try it in the Steam Workshop, linked below. When you use this machine, you'll want to middle click on a block for the camera to follow, because allowing the camera to follow the center of mass doesn't usually give a good view. The new Valfrost zones made me completely go back to the drawing board to design a minimalist all zones machine. I think this is the biggest jump in difficulty yet, and that's pretty cool. Not only does it give a fresh challenge, but since the machine has to be more robust to beat the new, harder zones, it can beat the earlier zones more easily. So in this all zones run, I'm spared from the grueling 7+ minute zone completions that I had to do for my 5 and 8 block records. I was able to beat all but 2 zones in under a minute, and the remaining 2 were still within 3 minutes. By the way, I used a rocket in the design because it weighs the same as a ballast block at the lowest setting, but it gives you the option to self-destruct and unleash even more explosive power. If you do try the 38 Special in the Steam Workshop, please be patient because it takes practice to fly it, especially with the bomb. If you don't turn at the start of the simulation, the front grabber will automatically catch the bomb. The weight in the front will cause the flare to tend forward without using forward thrust. Although this arrangement isn't very stable, it is possible to transport the bomb any distance with practice. The main idea is to apply sustained thrust while the flyer is vertical, and let go when it goes horizontal. With the right timing, you can gain altitude without losing control. Turning is best done in small increments, when you're high enough so that you can afford to lose some altitude while regaining stability. When they updated the AI for the new enemies in Valfrost, it changed for the old enemies too. These knights used to cluster under any flying machine, making it easy to bomb all of them at once. Now they're more reluctant to follow, which makes it harder to win quickly. This is the first zone in which I use the 38 Special as a ground unit. You can get rid of the balloon by falling from a high altitude, or by running into obstacles. Once you're on the ground, the fans that were used for lift now propel you forward, and the gear on top works as steering. My previous minimum block all zones machines could only fly, and it was really hard to efficiently take out ground targets with them, so being able to move along the ground is really handy. It's especially nice in zones with a lot of small targets, like the village of Diom. A major advantage to this design is that the gear is immune to the enemy's weapons, and the bottom fan is too because it's on a grabber. So you always have full ground mobility as long as you don't catch on fire. This is an exploit that might be patched later, but for now it's the most efficient way to handle the tough enemies later in Valfrost. By the way, I also want to mention that some of my favorite YouTubers, like ReviewTechUSA, The Amazing Atheist, and Computing Forever, have all had viewers say they found themselves mysteriously unsubscribed, even though they always watch that YouTuber's content. Even I had a viewer mention that he noticed he was unsubscribed and didn't know why. So apparently, YouTube really is indiscriminately unsubscribing people, and not just removing bots and inactive subscribers. So if you were subscribed before, please double check and make sure you're still subscribed. Also, apparently now you have to click the bell next to the subscribe button to actually get notified of new videos. I'm not sure why they messed with the system that worked fine before, but that's the way it is now. Hitting a checkpoint only counts if the starting block goes through it, so you have to pick up the starting block first while dodging the archer's arrows. It's not the most convenient setup, but it's necessary for a later zone. To get part of the castle and some knights with a single bomb, go slowly enough so the knights can follow you. With that, the island of Ypsilon is conquered. Now to move on to the rainy land of Talbrin. There are a lot of zones coming up on which I don't have anything to say, but I do have some commentaries for some of the later zones. I still have nightmares about beating this zone with my 5-block machine rolled on a string, but it's surprisingly easy with the 38 special. If you take your time and land directly on top of each freighter, you can pretty consistently take them out without losing the balloon. But in this playthrough, I rushed it for a fast time. It's hard to maintain stable flight with the heavy poison jugs in front of the flyer. The trick is to take your time and position the craft as close to the jug as possible before lifting it for the best weight distribution. It's still hard to fly, and trying to aim the jug into the well is so hard it can feel like a rigged carnival game. But with practice and a little luck, it can be done. The goal here is to extinguish the sacred flame. There used to be a glitch such that, if the flame ignited a rocket, sometimes that would put out the flame. But I tried that a bunch of times and I couldn't get it to work anymore, so I think they patched it. So I included a water cannon that I can lift with the flyer. You have to get the most out of the 38 Special's power to lift the sword. To do that, make sure you're angled back when you attach to the sword. Hold the upward fans the whole time, and use the forward fan intermittently to rock the sword back and forth. Once you wiggle the sword out of the ground, it's just a matter of moving it to the goal. Like some other zones, the goal here is to transport an object. But for the first time, the front grabber can't reach the object to be moved. So in this case, you can drop the bottom fan and let the bottom grabber do the lifting. Then you can slide the surprisingly heavy book to the goal. Due to a couple lucky breaks, the last zone in Talbrand falls in record time. Now to move on to the new island of Valfrost. This zone is the reason the starting block had to be separate from the flyer. The main reason the flyer needed a fan for forward thrust and a grabber in the front is that you have to ring these bells in close succession to win. I like that they added time as a factor to increase the challenge, but they were more creative than to just add an arbitrary time limit for the whole zone. Finally, we arrive at the zone that most resembles an all-out war. This zone is the reason my machine has to withstand endless enemy attacks, although I suspect there will be more zones like it in the future. Soon into the battle, the enemy ticks off all but the essential guarded components, so you can see how the 38 Special works when stripped to the bare bones. With that, the 38 Special conquers all 38 zones in Besiege version .4. The link to take it for a test flight is in the description. If you enjoyed the 38 Special, please give it a thumbs up on Steam.
Just hold on.